The war in Ukraine is not only grinding down soldiers on the front lines, but also tearing apart Russia's power structure from within. As resources dwindle, factions are plunging into a desperate struggle for survival. The FSB has launched a purge campaign, arresting up to 155 high-ranking officials, seizing assets, and even threatening Putin's position. The climax came with a strike against General Gerasimov, the architect of Russia's war, through scandals involving his mistress, money, and lavish assets.
Kremlin in turmoil. Ukraine war fractures Russian power structure, triggering life-or-death power struggle.
According to multiple sources close to the Kremlin, the war in Ukraine has shattered the coordination mechanism that kept Russia's system functioning for many years. As the war drags on and resources are depleted, various factions within the power structure have begun an unprecedented fierce struggle. One official admitted, "This is a fight over what's left, and it's disappearing very fast." Internal reports show that powerful security agencies, the FSB, Rosgvardia, and components of national security are increasingly detaching from the civilian government and the presidential administration's domestic policy bloc. A United Russia Party deputy described the current situation succinctly. "Every decision is made according to war logic. There's no coordination between agencies like before." More worryingly, an FSB officer confirmed that the surveillance system once used to monitor the opposition has been redirected to monitor state agencies themselves and local governments. Another source concluded, "Before, everyone united against external enemies. Now they're fighting each other." Clear evidence of the chaos is the foreign agent list, an important tool for Kremlin political pressure for many years. Now, this label is no longer fully controlled by the presidential administration. It's applied not only to the opposition, but also to pro-government businessmen and even bloggers who support Putin. In one case, a blogger was added to the list simply for praising Sergei Kiriyenko, deputy chief of staff of the presidential administration and the person responsible for internal political strategy for nearly a decade. Notably, Kiriyenko is currently a target of rival power groups. Sources say he wasn't even informed beforehand when senior officials he personally appointed were arrested. In 2025 alone, 155 officials have been arrested, from mayors to deputy governors. The FSB has become the fastest expanding force, conducting numerous internal investigations and large-scale asset seizures. More than 4.5 trillion rubles, equivalent to about $50 billion, have been confiscated from people closely connected to the power apparatus since the war began. Many insiders admit the FSB is threatening even Putin's position, as the agency uses the guise of wartime anti-corruption to purge rival political groups. Tensions have particularly escalated due to the complex relationship between Kiriyenko and Yuri Kovalchuk, a powerful billionaire, major shareholder of Bank Rossiya, and one of Putin's closest associates. Security background groups view Kovalchuk as a direct rival in the competition for influence over Kremlin policy. One source concluded, "The longer the war drags on, the weaker the economy becomes, the sharper the internal conflicts. No faction trusts any other anymore." The political turmoil became even more intense on November 19th, when Russian media suddenly and simultaneously released investigative reports targeting General Valery Gerasimov, chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. The investigations accused him of abusing his power to promote his 47-year-old mistress, Elena Selefanova, placing her in a high-paying position at the Ministry of Defense. After bearing Gerasimov an illegitimate daughter, Selefanova's career skyrocketed. From working for obscure companies, she was accepted into a military unit, then promoted to regular personnel. By 2018, she became a first-class civilian official and worked for 5 consecutive years at the Ministry of Defense. During the same period, she purchased a series of luxury real estate properties in central Moscow, 2 apartments in Taganka, a 100-square-meter unit in Khamovniki, and a luxury apartment in the House on the Embankment building, totaling over 100 million rubles in value. She drove a Porsche Cayenne and Lexus and continuously flew to Turkey from 2022, all described as clear traces of state money flowing into personal pockets. The notable point isn't the affair money story itself, but how it was leaked to the public. Sources confirm this was a campaign orchestrated by Russian security agencies themselves to eliminate one of the military's most powerful figures. Gerasimov is not only chief of the General Staff, but also the architect of hybrid warfare doctrine, the designer of most military campaigns in Ukraine since 2014. His becoming a target shows the system is reversing course. The officer class is seen as a burden amid battlefield stagnation, heavy losses, and numerous defense officials already arrested for corruption. On Russian social media, thousands of comments erupted, with many demanding to take the matter further so the system collapses. This reflects widespread dissatisfaction with the elite class. Such exposés typically signal new waves of purges, like in 2024, when numerous generals were arrested, causing command disruption and leading to many tactical errors in Kharkiv and Donetsk. Analysts assess this scandal could be the opening move to remove Gerasimov, especially as he's blamed for military failures in 2024 to 2025. The revelations about his private life, assets, secret family, and signs of his mistress's profiteering are merely tools in the power struggle between security factions, hawk factions, and the Ministry of Defense. Ukraine turns Pokrovsk into a kill zone. Russia loses logistics, mobility, and offensive momentum. According to the latest assessment from the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, Ukraine has delivered a decisive blow to Russia's logistics system at Pokrovsk, causing Moscow's advance rate to sharply decline since early November. After weeks of rapid, deep penetration, Russia's offensive momentum suddenly stalled because supply lines were disrupted by Ukraine to the point of near paralysis. A spokesperson for a Ukrainian brigade in the Pokrovsk direction described the consequences for Russia. They have to carry each package by hand, just 2 to 3 people per team, because vehicles can't get in. Main roads are continuously mined, especially corridors Russia typically uses for heavy vehicles. Russian armored vehicles have almost stopped appearing in urban areas due to the immediate risk of destruction by Ukrainian UAVs and artillery. A Ukrainian drone battalion commander added, "Every road Russia tries to use is under UAV observation. Maneuver is virtually impossible." On November 10th to 11th, Russian forces tried to exploit thick fog to bring personnel and ammunition via the M30 route from the south into Pokrovsk. Initially, pro-Kremlin bloggers excitedly claimed Russian vehicles had penetrated the center. But just hours later, a blogger himself had to admit the video they posted had become golden coordinates for Ukrainian artillery. The Russian convoy was hit shortly after, making Moscow's mechanization efforts even more desperate. Russia also tried to retaliate by hitting Ukrainian logistics, but according to local commanders, Russian forces at Pokrovsk cannot maintain fixed defensive lines, forcing them to fight in dispersed formations, making all their resupply operations occur under extreme pressure. The Pokrovsk front line currently exists as a 15 to 20-kilometer strip that ISW describes as a kill zone. The area is blanketed by reconnaissance drones and attack UAVs from both sides. Any vehicle or soldier moving can be detected and destroyed within seconds. This is one of the most dangerous front sections, forcing both Russia and Ukraine to fight in conditions of extreme mobility exhaustion and rely on drones as the primary tool.
During a visit to the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad front line, Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky directly commanded Ukrainian units, emphasizing that this area remains the hottest point as Russia continuously reinforces troop numbers and expands attacks. At the meeting with Forward Command, Syrsky assessed all defense results, reviewed reconnaissance strike operations, approved small counterattacks to maintain positions, issued orders to increase offensive capability, more firepower, vehicles, combat equipment. He affirmed Ukraine must maintain initiative by ensuring its logistics remain uninterrupted and disrupting Russian logistics to the maximum extent. According to Syrsky's report, in just the past 4 days, Russia lost 487 troops, of which 350 were permanent losses. These figures reflect the intensity of combat and Ukraine's increasingly effective strikes. In the Dobropilya direction, north of Pokrovsk, units of the 1st Army Corps, Azov National Guard forces, are playing a key role in the drone defense system. Video footage released from the battlefield shows Russian infantry, mechanized vehicles, combat support equipment, everything appearing in Azov UAV sites, are successively destroyed by extremely precise strikes from above. The mission of UAV pilots is not only to eliminate targets, but also to prevent the enemy from approaching defensive lines, disrupting the attack rhythm and making Russia hesitate. In central Pokrovsk, Russia tried to turn a building into a key defensive point to block a Ukrainian offensive thrust. The Ukrainian infantry unit, to avoid casualties, requested air support. Just minutes later, 2 Ukrainian Su-27 fighters scrambled, using GBU-62 guided bombs, hit Russia's fortified position precisely. The strike completely destroyed the defensive position, opening the way for Ukrainian infantry to continue advancing and increasing pressure in the area. Command praised the extremely fast coordination speed between infantry and air force, evidence of Ukraine's flexible combat capability in the dangerous urban battlefield.
Kremlin lies, battlefield tells truth. Ukraine exposes city capture claims and wave of Russian desertions. On November 20th, the Ukrainian military spoke out to completely refute Russian Chief of General Staff General Gerasimov's claim, who confidently reported directly to Vladimir Putin that Russian forces had liberated Kupiansk. Ukraine called this propaganda product aimed at concealing battlefield failures. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine affirmed Kupiansk remains completely under Ukrainian control, with special forces and counterintelligence forces hunting down Russian sabotage groups that infiltrated some peripheral areas. The city has not fallen at all. On the contrary, a sweep operation is underway to clean up remnants. The announcement emphasized Kupiansk remains under Ukrainian control. All attempts by Russian sabotage groups to establish positions have been detected and neutralized. The situation in Yampil is similar. Ukraine continues to conduct precise strikes to eliminate remaining Russian elements, with no Russian capture of the area or breakthrough of defensive lines. Claims that Russia captured most of Vovchansk or Pokrovsk were also assessed by Kyiv as fabrications. At Pokrovsk, Ukrainian forces are hunting down remaining small groups while consolidating rear logistics, stabilizing frontline combat strength, and preparing for subsequent counterstrikes. Ukrainian military leadership believes this series of victory claims only aims to compensate for Russia's heavy losses, maintaining the illusion of victory for the domestic audience. Its propaganda machine product aimed at concealing catastrophic consequences from the meat grinder attacks that Moscow continuously launches. Viktor Tregubov, communications officer of the Joint Forces Group, emphasized to the press that there was absolutely no Russian breakthrough at Kupiansk. According to him, Russian troops only appear sporadically in the northern outskirts of the city, with insufficient numbers to form even a significant-scale attack thrust. He also refuted Putin's claim that Russia had encircled 15 Ukrainian battalions at Kupiansk, calling it geographically and scientifically absurd. The area Russia claimed to have encircled is only about 4 square kilometers, completely unable to contain the number of units Moscow boasts about. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian General Staff reiterated that the country's military maintains effective strikes across the entire front, with over 371,000 Russian soldiers removed from combat since the beginning of the year, a figure clearly reflecting the terrible attrition Moscow is bearing, completely contrary to the continuous victories picture that Gerasimov and the Kremlin try to paint. Morale collapse, forced conscripts desert before Pokrovsk. Meat assaults. On the ground, behind Putin and Gerasimov's bold statements, is a completely different reality. Russian military morale is collapsing, especially in units thrown into the Pokrovsk meat grinder. According to information from an Atesh partisan movement spy embedded in Russia's 110th Motorized Rifle Brigade, groups of new recruits forcibly mobilized from the temporarily occupied Luhansk region were brought to this unit. What's shocking is they received virtually no training, but were immediately put into assault groups attacking in the Pokrovsk direction, where casualty rates are extremely high, with few having a chance to survive. Just hearing a brief description of the one-way mission, at least 4 people immediately fled the unit, accepting deserter status rather than being thrown into an attack they understood very clearly. The likelihood of meaningless death is almost certain. Atesh emphasized that these soldiers risking desertion under brutal martial law conditions shows they no longer trust command and don't want to be sacrificial pawns for generals' ambitions or the general staff's consecutive failed tactical decisions. For them, desertion, despite facing arrest, torture, or execution, remains a less terrible choice compared to being driven into meat grinder attacks at Pokrovsk. Partisans assess this phenomenon is a direct sign that Russian military morale is deteriorating, especially in units suffering terrible casualties around Pokrovsk. According to local sources, Russia has initiated a new wave of forced conscription in the temporarily occupied Luhansk area. Local men are forced to enlist, have their identity documents confiscated, and are sent straight to the front line without proper training. On the battlefield, they're used as expendable forces serving large-scale battles. The desertion wave of these forcibly conscripted recruits shows Russia's mobilization system is cracking from within. Even those dragged into the ranks understand they're just cannon fodder in the Pokrovsk offensive campaign, where even Moscow's victory declarations cannot hide the reality that Russian units are being ground down daily. American volunteer captures 4 Russian soldiers in Serebryansky forest. Also in the Luhansk direction, an American volunteer serving in Ukraine's 63rd Mechanized Brigade attracted international community attention when directly participating in capturing 4 Russian soldiers alive in a sweep operation in Serebryansky forest. The entire process was recorded by him in video footage released on November 20th. The brigade described this as a unique film, recorded by an assault team member right on the battlefield. In the video, Bruce, the American fighter's name, and his comrades advanced deep into dense forest where close-quarters combat has been continuous for many months. When approaching the group of Russian soldiers, he maintained a calm voice, using fluent Ukrainian to order the opposing side to drop weapons and surrender. According to Ukrainian soldiers, his politeness but firmness made the entire group of Russian prisoners clearly surprised. The 4 Russian soldiers were then subdued without intense firefight.